At the end of World War II, Americans gave a collective sigh of relief and came home to what they assumed would be a return to normalcy. But the world they left behind had changed. Democracy and science had triumphed, and with those, a new optimism had been born, which made anything seem possible. This outlook was reflected not only in social and economic growth, but also in the fields of science and medicine. And it was into the vacuum created by the expanding needs of a new generation that these areas of knowledge gained a foothold, and out of which a number of new disciplines emerged. The new science of neuropsychopharmacology sprang from the confluence of several of these scientific disciplines and areas of clinical practice, including psychiatry, chemistry, and pharmacology. In the 1950s, the idea that research on neurophysiology and neurochemistry would lead to new knowledge about how the brain worked was young. The small cadre of researchers, clinicians, and state hospital administrators who would come to comprise the core of the ACNP shared the view that the gap between brain and behavior would be narrowed through the use of drugs as analytic tools and chemical probes. This drew them into drug development and evaluation, and into conversation with others doing similar work in similar settings. In the late 1950s, psychopharmacotherapy was a nascent science heralded and acclaimed by some and rejected by others. At that time, Theodore Rothman, MD, one of the first American psychoanalysts to prescribe the new psychoactive drugs, astutely concluded that psychopharmacotherapy was meritorious and destined to be a major scientific development of the 20th century. Rothman conceived the idea of assembling a small number of the then recognized pioneers in psychopharmacology in North America to examine its current status, its future, and what needed to be done to ensure its advancement. The result? A conference for the advancement of neuropsychopharmacology, which led to the founding of the ACNP, was held on November 12th and 13th, 1960, at the Hotel Barbizon Plaza in New York City. The meeting's stated impetus was to create an organization modeled on the American College of Physicians for those involved in producing and testing the efficacy of new drugs. Rothman was the convening secretary, and the meeting was chaired by Paul H. Hoch, the Hungarian-born Commissioner for Mental Health in New York State. Besides Hoch and Rothman, the attendees included Frank Ade, Henry Brill, Bernard Brody, Eugene Caffey, Jonathan Cole, Joel Elkes, Paul Feldman, James Ferguson, Fritz Freyen, Douglas Goldman, Abram Hoffer, Nathan Klein, Heinz Lehmann, Arnold Scheibel, Joseph Tobin, James Tolman, and Joseph Zubin. The excitement pervading this meeting extended to the organizational session that was held in what Joel Elkes recalled as the proverbial smoke-filled room, in which some of us years ago planned the creation of the American College of Neuropsychopharmacology.
November 1960, convened a group which was charged with to advance neuropsychopharmacology. There were 20 invited people and 20 guests. At that meeting, ways and means were being discussed, and one suggestion which came from one of the committees was to form a college of neuropsychopharmacology as a scientific society.
The committee to organize the ACNP was formed with Ted Rothman as chair, along with Paul Hoch, Frank Ade, Jonathan Cole, and Paul Feldman. Bernard Brody was to serve as basic science consultant. Frank Ade recounted that the ensuing months were busy ones for the organizing committee. They met many times and spent countless hours collectively and individually investigating, inquiring, studying, and readying plans for an organizational meeting of interested individuals drawn from neuropsychopharmacology, with the set purpose of creating a permanent society for the advancement of neuropsychopharmacology. When all the preparations were completed, the first organizational meeting of the American College of Neuropsychopharmacology was held at the Woodner Hotel in Washington, D.C. on October 7th and 8th, 1961. At this historic gathering of some 90 participants from 22 states and 2 Canadian provinces representing such disciplines as psychiatry, pharmacology, neurophysiology, psychology, and biochemistry, Rothman's dream became reality. The first meeting of the college was a heady one, permeated with the spirit of adventure. In addition to participating in scientific sessions, excited attendees were busily occupied with multiple functions. They approved a constitution and bylaws for the college, elected the first council and the first slate of officers, including the election of Joel Elkes as the first president of the ACNP. The ACNP's first annual meeting was held January 24th through 27th, 1963, at the Woodner Hotel in Washington, D.C. The meeting included 9 informally organized study sections, proposed by President Joel Elkes in his first presidential report of June 1962. The initial 123 members recalled the study sections fondly. It is the responsibility of the college to develop the science of psychopharmacology and the application and dissemination of the science. The group comprising the college is small. Members know each other through their respective work, and with the passage of time, will get to know one another even better. There is thus a ready opportunity to clarify some issues through frank debate in small groups. With this in view, Council has accepted my suggestion for the formation of study groups within the college. Groups are intended to examine topics which are either vague or controversial, to summarize the status, including the gaps, within a given field, and to provide guidelines for its future development. As the organization matured, the early focus on self-regulation became moot. That focus makes clear that the ACNP was not founded simply as a scientific organization. As Nathan Klein put in his 1967 ACNP presidential address, because of our relatively modest size and cohesiveness, it has been possible to react rapidly and with general unanimity to some of the legislative, administrative, and other events which seriously concerned us. Many of us feel that it is our responsibility to contribute not only research findings, but to help create the social environment whereby new knowledge in our field can be safely acquired and maximally applied. Creating the kind of social climate in which the findings of neuropsychopharmacology would be accepted and implemented in socially beneficial ways was the goal. That goal has been an ongoing commitment of the ACNP. The redefinition of many so-called social problems, once understood as socioeconomic in origin, as behavioral, mental, and mood disorders, best understood as originating in the brain. The ACNP was positioning itself to deliver this message to the American public and federal agencies, while consolidating the scientific basis of American neuropsychopharmacology. In its first 5 years, the college's reputation for its accomplishments and for the quality of its annual meetings rapidly grew. Increasing applications for membership led to advocacy for enlarging college membership. This is a testimony to the able leadership of the early college presidents, Elkes, Hoke, Greenblatt, Lehman, and Cole. These great men, along with the early council members, were responsible for the healthy growth of the college. Each of the early college presidents would unhesitatingly acknowledge that the one man to whom the college was most indebted in the formative years was Dr. Theodore Rothman. from the day he conceived of the college until the time of his death in 1978. This humble, good-humored man worked assiduously, quietly, and with singular determination to assure the success of the college. Through the early years of ACNP, many of the founding members took their respective turns in places of leadership of the college. Whereas the roles of president and vice president changed yearly, the position of secretary-treasurer, which was to become an administrative cornerstone of ACNP, was often held for extended periods. Following Ted Rothman's initial stint as secretary-treasurer from 1962 to 1963, Richard Wittenborn served for the remainder of the decade until 1971. Beginning in 1973, Albert DiMasio served in this capacity until his untimely passing in 1978. It was the following year that Oakley Ray became secretary-treasurer for 1 year, until the office was divided into 2 separate positions. Oakley assumed the new role of executive secretary for the next 25 years, where he virtually defined the position and solidified its pivotal place in the administration of ACNP. Under Ray's watch, the college grew into an internationally known and respected organization.
He was the face of the ACNP, you know, and he reorganized it from the small group that met in bedrooms to an international organization that has prestige worldwide, you know.
Well, you know, you and I were presidents for a year, maybe council members for a few years. All of us, very important people who acted as council members or as presidents or incoming presidents, came and went away, and the only person who stayed was Oakley Ray. And the only person who organized this meeting was Oakley Ray. We made very wise comments in our council meetings. And as presidents of what should happen, he, generally speaking, ignored all of us and did exactly what he needed to do. And, you know, scouted for good places and set up a good organization. And he was a very cordial and funny host, endowed with a wonderful sense of humor, and really radiated warmth.
In accordance with an amendment to the bylaws approved by the membership in March 2004, 2 new candidates for ACNP secretary to serve a 5-year term were on the ballot in the spring of 2005. Alan Fraser was elected to serve as the first new ACNP secretary in 27 years. Fraser's term began in 2006, and he continues in that position today. Working with council, he revised the key functions of the Secretary's office to be providing oversight and guidance to a professional staff employed to manage the college's executive office and its operations. It was in the latter part of the 1990s that Council began to think about the need to employ an executive director. In Council meeting on December 18, 1998, new President Stephen Paul announced that a search would be initiated. On July 1, 1999, Ronnie Wilkins was employed as the first ACNP Executive Director and has held that position since. Since the inception of the ACNP, the annual meeting has been a key factor in contributing to the successful development of college. The ACNP annual meeting has served as the forum by which the college conducts its business, while growing in stature and prestige over the past 50 years. In the words of Oakley Ray, the college has always had as its central focus its annual meeting, which, as everyone who has attended agrees, is the best meeting of its type in the world. In the early years, the number of members was severely restricted, and the phrase, you could not become a member until someone died was almost true. While things have changed somewhat over the years, the membership is still greatly restricted, and competition for the limited membership is high. As a result, only the best and brightest in the field become ACNP members. In addition to the quality of the people participating in the annual meeting as members and invited guests, the scientific programming is consistently outstanding. Only members or members collaborating with non-members can submit panel proposals for consideration for inclusion in the annual meeting program. The program committee, consisting of ACNP members, conducts an exhaustive vetting process to ensure that all relevant areas are included so that the program reflects well the changing nature of the field. Historically, the ACNP has served a unique role as an organization that brings clinicians doing research into professional relationships with basic researchers and with the scientists working in pharmaceutical houses. And the ACNP annual meeting would serve as a forum in the development of those cross-discipline relationships. Jonathan Cole, who headed the PRB, clearly saw the ACNP as an important meeting ground for the emerging neuroscience research infrastructure, one that included among its ranks scientists from industry as well as academic scientists and clinicians.
Well, I think we fed the ACNP to start with. At one point, early-ish on, I managed to have them apply for and get a grant to support the ACNP for like 4 or 5 years, which was, I think, helpful.
The ACNP nurtured some of the earliest collaborations between government, industry, and academia. Given the pride members take in this history, attempts to preserve ACNP meetings as places where only science is spoken have been ongoing.
So over the last 15, 20 years, there's no doubt that the relationship between the ACNP and industry has changed a lot. And as is well known now, we are, as an organization, trying to wean ourselves completely from dependence on industry finances. And we're making good progress in doing that. I fully support that. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. What we must not do in that process, however, in my view, is to alienate our industry colleagues, because we need them just as much as they need us. So we've got to have that close tie between the academic members of our organization here and the industrial members. and that's something we have to carefully preserve, at the same time getting away from being financially dependent on industry.
While these relationships are not without both perceived and, at times, actual conflict, it is clear that the ACNP has provided networking terrain.
And it also requires a setting in which industry, academia, and government can civilly engage in discussions that are principally scientific. And we've done a fantastic job in the last decade. I think in many ways we've been well ahead of other academic societies in establishing boundaries in our relationship with industry without discouraging industry.
It was Roger Meyer who led a group of ACNP members to apply for and attain grant funds from the American Association of Medical Colleges and the Office of Research Integrity for the development of a supporting corporation code of conduct. ACNP was one of the first academic societies to put into place such a code. Since its adoption in 2005, the ACNP has required that all supporting corporations agree to abide by this code of conduct.
We've done it with industry and not to industry.
In addition to serving as a forum for scientists from government, industry, and academia, the ACNP annual meeting has also proven to be fertile meeting ground for scientists from various fields of expertise, from various parts of the world.
I think what I cherished most is the dialogue between the disciplines, between clinical and preclinical, this bridging of that gap, which I thought was wonderful, you know. Where I come from, you know, psychiatrists and pharmacologists never talk to each other, you know. And here, I think this is the beauty, you know, this interdisciplinary thing, this communication between the disciplines, you know. And of course, you know, the friendships one formed over the years.
I've always liked meetings where there's a mixture of basic science, clinical, and also industrial, you know, from the companies, because obviously they synthesize drugs and their effects are of great interest to us. My earliest inklings in these areas were with the British Association of Psychopharmacology, which was formed in the 60s, and it's only been quite recently that I've realised that actually it was stimulated by the ACNP in 1961. And I regularly come to the ACNP meetings because for me it's the best meeting around in terms of quality of science, and in particular this unique overlap of academe, clinical and industry.
I think the impact of the ACNP on science in Israel could perhaps be measured by how popular I became when I became a member and I could give out once a year a free invitation. And the number of people contacting me and asking me to sponsor them to come to the ACNP increased exponentially from 1990, and today it's tens of people who are asking me years in advance, and I think that reflects the ACNP as a model for us.
Throughout its history, ACNP membership was restricted to North American scientists. In 2010, changes were made to the ACNP bylaws that no longer restricted membership to North America. This decision, which provides for a larger applicant pool of prestigious scientists, was made to ensure that the ACNP continues to represent the best science in the world. The first few ACNP annual meetings took place in the Northeast, where much of the college's activities and members were based. Following a severe winter storm that jeopardized attendance, a debate about moving the meeting to a warm weather location ensued. Paul Hoke, an influential member and immediate past president, provided resistance to moving the meeting, but his untimely passing eliminated the most vocal opposition.
Well, other than people like me thought meeting in Puerto Rico would be kind of fun, and then Hope died. So we moved to Puerto Rico. And it did turn out to be good. I mean, we'd have meetings in the morning, then like 3 hours around the pool, and then meetings in the afternoon.
The 5th annual meeting of the ACNP convened at the Sheraton Hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where it would take place for the next few years until the meeting outgrew the space available at the hotel. Realizing that having the meeting in Puerto Rico was contributing to the quality of the annual meeting, but requiring a larger venue, the college moved the meeting to the nearby Hilton Caribe, where it would remain for most of the next 3 decades. The Hilton Caribe would come to play a very influential role in the development of the college's annual meeting, as well as becoming an important part of the lives of ACNP members.
When we were at the Sheraton, there was a limited amount of space. The membership was limited to 400. There were a limited number of people could be invited, and the program was to have most of the activities during the morning and in the evening. And the afternoons were free for people to walk on the beach and converse, take a swim, and sit and introduce each other to the younger people that came in. And this became too large for the Sheraton, and we came here. And this was a place where we could have a large number of people all come. We practically took over the place, and everybody in the hotel was part of this organization, or at least the majority was, so that you felt very comfortable, and we got more crowded. There were more sessions, but not everybody went to all the sessions. They still had the opportunity to be on the beach, Dan Friedman used to be out on the wharf looking over at the fish, and there were about a dozen people around him, half of them young people who had heard him. There were other people who came who were Merton Sandler, Arvid Carlson, who later won a Nobel Prize, came, and they were all contributing to the development of this organization as well. And at the poster sessions, these young people would be presenting some of the things, and one of the great opportunities was for a guy like Julie Axelrod to walk around. I used to go around and ask questions about the poster, and I would feel so good. The guy would say, "Oh, Dr. Copeland, I know you, I read your paper." Well, you know, it makes me feel good.
Well, it was certainly a very relaxed place. What was culturally interesting is coming to a meeting in which here are all these most senior people dressed in shorts and flip-flops. Didn't have to wear a tie around here, which I think set the tone. Being on the beach, being in a warm place, having lots of time off, lots of time for lunch, but also nothing scheduled in the evenings except to go out with friends and talk about science and what was going on in the field, or just talk about your families. There wasn't a meeting like that. Not with people of this quality.
Being at an ACNP meeting was very different from being at any other so-called academic society. There was far more collegiality and intimacy, perhaps because we have a shared interest, perhaps because we were all in academic medicine, and because we were all curious about what the future holds for us.
The fact that your peers had to choose you as worthy was a critical part. So the combination, I think that alone would not have done it. But the Caribbean Hilton, the environment, the exoticness, many of us, certainly me, came from environments. This was my first trip to the Caribbean. And it was a special, magical kind of
And it
thing.
started at the, but it seems to me in the beginning, it was San Juan and it was the Caribbean Hilton. I mean, I think that is what added the special addition to the society. It started at the airport.
In the
You
airport.
get off the plane I'm coming from St. Louis or Minnesota, and you make these connections, and you get off the plane, and there, waiting for your luggage, you meet 2 or 3 other people that you hadn't seen forever, and you could start talking about what they did, what they were doing now, what the research was, and it just started there and continued through the whole week.
I don't know about the others, but I felt, again, when I was dropped off by the taxi in the front of the Caribe, I felt like I was coming home. I just was very,
You'd be
it was
dropped,
just
exactly.
I was coming home.
I think the other thing that made the meeting very special in those days was the 3 hours between the end of the morning meeting and the beginning of the afternoon meeting were sacrosanct. We protected those. And there was time that I remember very clearly that some of the best discussions I ever had at this meeting were on the beach during that break, where we get into these enormous debates sometimes. It was a wonderful setting to encourage the kind of interaction that you really crave as a scientist, you know.
Well, there are so many memories of these beach discussions that really are such an important part of the typical ACNP meeting. So, and I remember so many people that I met there and had so much of fascinating talks.
As close personal relationships developed between members and their extended families, the ACNP annual meeting not only served as the forum to conduct business and disseminate scientific information, it became a family reunion for members.
It was a family thing. I mean, my wife and my kids, we'd look forward to coming down here in December, getting away from Chicago winters, when there really were Chicago winters, when it was more like living in the North Pole than it is now. And I just love this place. I mean, it really felt like home coming here.
But this was the meeting where you can get really close, and I always look forward to seeing my friends here, sharing their family. It is the wonderful thing about ACNP that we're such a family.
We not only know how their science is doing, but we know how their families are doing, how their spouse is. We've watched their kids grow up, shared their triumphs and tragedies, been there for them to, share their successes and help them through bad times. So this has become a family. And when I come here, from the moment I'm in the airport and sharing a taxi ride to the time I leave, it's always a time of happiness. It's a time of reunion. It's a time of being with family. Some of the closest friendships that I have are here.
Almost from its inception, the publication of cutting-edge scientific material, as well as periodic reviews of the field, have been a key function of the ACNP. Utilizing proceeds of a grant secured through the assistance of Jonathan Cole while he was at the PRB, Psychopharmacology, a Review of Progress 1957 through 1967, was published in 1968 by the U.S. Government Printing Office. The 116 papers included in it constituted the proceedings of the 6th annual meeting of the ACNP. 8 sessions were held at that meeting, and in each of these, either original work or reviews of a significant area of psychopharmacology were addressed. A second major publication, entitled Psychopharmacology, A Generation of Progress, was prepared in 1976 to mark the 20th year of the National Institute of Mental Health's Psychopharmacology Research Branch, and the 15th year of the ACNP. The book was 1,731 pages long and contained 149 chapters prepared by 241 contributing authors, most of whom were members or guests of the ACNP. These first 2 major publications of the college were to become the first of a series of 5 volumes that are referred to as the Generations of Progress series. The Generations of Progress, published intermittently between 1968 and 2002, served for decades as a major reference work, updated periodically to include a review of the latest and best information in the field. The explosion of information reflected in the exponential growth of original and review publications and journals, indicated that there was a need to establish an ongoing publication designed to provide authoritative and timely coverage of contemporary topics in the field. Thus, in 1987, the journal Neuropsychopharmacology was created for the purpose of publishing scientific papers in the field. As the official journal of the college, Neuropsychopharmacology grew to enjoy a singular status among scientific journals, reflecting the stature of the college and its membership. The journal's goal was to be the best in the 3 fields it represented: psychiatric research, neuropharmacology, and psychopharmacology. There was no question in deciding to utilize the outstanding people in the field when they were preparing their very best work for publication. But there were 2 major tasks to address in doing so. Convince the very best people to send their best work when they could send it anywhere they chose, and to make certain there were no impediments to publishing their work. The theory in creating the best publication possible followed a circular process, achieved by having the top scientist publish in the journal, which would in turn attract other leaders in their respective fields to have their work appear also. The college membership embodied, and still embodies, the very best in their domains. Simply put, if you publish your best work in neuropsychopharmacology, then the journal's success would be guaranteed. Neuropsychopharmacology and the Generation of Progress were the 2 major publications of ACNP until the early years of the 21st century. As Council considered the challenge of preparing a 6th generation of progress, it became obvious that a single large volume was an increasingly difficult mechanism for promulgating new data given the pace of research, developments in information technology, and the time needed for authoring, editing, printing, and distributing such a massive work. After considering several alternatives, a new annual publication was born, Neuropsychopharmacology Reviews. NPPR was designed to be the first issue of each volume of neuropsychopharmacology. But as the January issue, it is prepared and ready to be unveiled at the December annual meeting of the college. As the ACNP reaches its milestone anniversary, it not only pauses to look back on the past 50 years, but also keeps moving forward with the same laser-like focus that has allowed it to develop into a world-class scientific society.
I think it's important at this occasion of the 50th anniversary of the ACNP to take stock of where we are as a field. We've seen just awesome advances in neuroscience research over the last several decades. We have tools available now in the laboratory that we didn't even fantasize about 10, 20, 30 years ago. And we are discovering new phenomena about how the brain functions under normal conditions, and to a certain extent, malfunctions in diseases. Over the last several years, we've worked hard to streamline the college's operations. We've gone from 13 categories of membership to 4. We've dramatically increased the role of our youngest members, in particular associate members, in all facets of the college's functions, including serving on committees and having a task force aimed at fostering the participation of our youngest members and future members, leaders in the college. We've worked very hard over the last few years to identify ways in which we can increase the diversity of the college to make sure that it matches the diversity of our field and in fact take a lead in having the college help increase the diversity of our field. We formed a task force on the role of women in the ACNP to ensure that women play the prominent role that they deserve in our scientific presentations and in the leadership of the college. And we're looking to increasing the representation of ethnic and racial minority members in our college's activities.
We are grateful to a generation who came before us by and large, who established this college. And we took over the leadership of that from that generation, and we hope that we stewarded it well. I hope that the fundamental values of camaraderie, friendship, honesty, integrity that I think have been here and implicit are the same values that the next generation of leaders carries forward as they bear an extraordinary responsibility for keeping this the great college it's been.
It is a very special moment for me. I have really very little to say because there is such an enormous amount to say. I can only express my deepest gratitude and respect to the college for doing me the highest honor I've received in my life, to giving me the opportunity to be in the company of such wonderful people and train, participate in the growth, that is, of the young people who came to the laboratory. we've all done well. We all keep on looking. We all have to light lanterns, lanterns which illuminate areas which are still murky, ununderstood. Above all, I think we have to create alliances, because the nature of our field compels us to choose and choose again people from disparate and different fields. For example, the whole question of communication in the nervous system cries out for collaboration between neurophysiologists, psychologists, educational experts, engineers, language translation specialists, and so on. And they don't know what we know, and we don't know what they know, and the knowledge has to become together by work at the bench. So alliances, alliances, attraction, attraction of our field to others whom we may invite to work alongside us and create the truly transdisciplinary discipline which we are, make it evident that this is a science like no other. It has a special characteristics of its own and will in time have earmarks by which it is known. It is not only molecular biology. It is not only electrophysiology. It is not only animal behavior. It is not only a clinical syndrome. It is the conversational interaction between these areas which matters, and we must do all we can to enhance the conversation. This is what the college can do like no other, nationally and internationally.
ACNP, happy 50th anniversary.
Happy 50th anniversary, ACNP.
Happy 50th anniversary, ACNP.
Very happy 50th anniversary, ACNP. And here's looking at another great 50 years going forward.
I hope I will still be alive when you celebrate the 50th anniversary in Hawaii, you know. And I wish the organization all the best. Happy anniversary.
Happy 50th anniversary, ACNP. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Happy 50th anniversary, ACNP.
ACNP, I give you best wishes for continued success. When I come back as a ghost, I want to see you functioning well.
Congratulations, ACNP. It is the best meeting that I go to every year. It is the meeting I learn from the most. It is the organization that I feel the strongest loyalty for, and I love it and love the members, and best wishes to everybody.
ACNP, happy anniversary!